If you had to evacuate your boat in an emergency, would you know how to deploy your life raft? Would you even know what's inside the life raft? Well, in this episode, you're going to learn. So, welcome from a cloudy, rainy Grenada in the middle of August of hurricane season. The clouds you see behind me and constant rain showers are what we tend to get these days. Oh well. It cools it down, which is nice. In the last video, I told you I was going to show you some of the other work that we did. I'm really not going to show you much of it. First of all, I suck at filming that kind of stuff because I'm not there all the time. And when we have other people do it, I feel weird filming them. Maybe I shouldn't, but I do. And so I didn't get a lot of film on the back swim step that John designed that used to be flat and permanent flat. John has designed it so that it can raise up, because that was our problem crossing the Atlantic. That waves, the following waves, hit that back swim step so often that it rattled loose all of the connections, the bolts that went through the hull underneath and on the sides. And so that was one of the places we were getting water coming into the engine room, and that's not a good thing. We also had some cracks from an older damage that we didn't know about when we bought the place, but we thought the cracks were fixed properly, and they weren't. But that's okay. They are now. Okay, one of the other things that we had to have done, because our AGM batteries swelled up like a big fat opera singer, was replace them with these lithiums. We put them in the same location. You can see this battery box is located under this settee next to the dining room table, door, helm. The batteries were much wider than the AGMs, so John had to cut through the wall and refiberglass to extend it. So we lost a little bit of bookshelf space in the port aft room, but it worked out okay. So we did, as you see behind me, add Mr. Starlink here. So far, so good. We've only used it in the port, so we'll let you know how it goes in other places. What I would like today's video to be about, though, is sea safety. We took our life raft into a company that takes it all apart and services it. So you have 2 or 3 years. I think it's 3 years that your life raft is good, and then it needs to be reserviced to make sure that the inflator is good, all of the products inside are good. You're going to get to see that because I filmed it. So this bucket that you see here is what our life raft is in. It is located on the back starboard sugar scoop. Some people put them on top, but the gentleman who owned our boat made this rack so that it could be right here, which I really like. I think it's a good spot because once you release it, it's just a good location. You don't have to pull it from above. You release it, it is attached to the boat, and we're going to show you what that looks like and how we use it if we had to.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. Oh, the good times just begun. Oh, we know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Oh.
Located in Clark's Court, Sea Safety Service is just above the North Yacht Shop. It is run by an Irish couple, Donald and his wife Sarah, who are wonderful to work with. Their staff came and collected our life raft because it's very heavy. They fully inflated the raft to test its integrity and then refilled the CO2 cylinders. Then they ensure the supplies are all up to date. Then they give us a full tour of our life raft so we know what to expect if we ever have to use it.
The one thing you have to bear in mind as well is that the painter, when the raft is in the box and you have that painter, that rope coming out of the box, which obviously must be secured to a strong point on the boat at all times. But the one thing to remember is that painter is about 35 feet long. So when you deploy the raft into the water, you have to pull on that painter. And you pull, and you pull, and you pull. A lot of people think that as soon as the raft was in the water, it's going to inflate. It doesn't. Okay? It's not like a life jacket. You pull and you pull and you pull on that painter, and you feel a little bit of resistance at the end. And you give it a sharp pull. Maybe 2 or 3 times you have to give it a sharp pull, and then the raft will inflate.
Oh.
But now the raft is 35 feet behind your boat. Okay. Can you pull it back in? In flat, calm conditions, maybe. But if there's any breeze there, virtually impossible, because bear in mind that ballast bags are now deployed. So there's a massive weight there. The entrance is open and you've got the wind blowing in. So it's unlikely that you'll be able to pull the raft back to the boat. So you're going to have to go from the boat to the raft. You're going to have to get in the water at some point. And we'll talk about that in a minute as to how, what we feel is the best way to do that. So you've deployed the raft, you've pulled, the raft inflates. It's now lying about 30 feet behind your boat. You're going to have to get into the raft. And the only way to do that is to make sure that the painter line from the raft to the yacht, obviously you have it secured. The best way to do that is to enter the water. Obviously you've got your life jacket on, but once you enter the water, your life jacket is going to inflate, and you have this inflatable bladder in front here. You can't swim, because as soon as you try and turn over, it's going to flip you back again. So you're lying in the water like this. Now, if you have a harness with a carabiner and you clip your harness onto the life raft, you can then pull yourself down to the life raft. And it also means that you're not separated from the raft. Whereas jumping into the water and attempting to swim the life raft is not a really good idea, because the chances are that a big wave comes and carries you away. But if you're attached to the life raft at all times, you have a better chance. Okay.
Makes sense.
So you don't suggest then just setting it on the deck and pulling the line out, and then when you feel it get tight, kick it off the deck
I wouldn't suggest
for that last bump.
No, there's too much there to think about, you know. And you've all this stuff on the deck, and what if it deploys when it's on the deck, and it squeezes up between the mast and one of the shrouds and punctures or something? It's not a good idea. They should be inflated in the water. When the raft inflates, the cylinder contains about 30% more gas than is actually required to inflate the raft. And the reason for that is that if you're in a cold climate, the gas is going to contract, so the volume of gas is lower. So they need to give you more gas to make sure it inflates. And what stops it from exploding are these pressure relief valves here on the outside. This one here, and this one over here. So if you ever had to inflate this raft in an emergency, you'd see the raft would inflate, it'll burst out of its box, and it'll inflate within sort of 15 to 20 seconds. But then you hear this most distressing hissing sound. And that can be quite distressing, because you think, oh God, you know, the raft is going to sink. It's perfectly normal. It's the excess gas escaping from the pressure relief valves. Once it reaches working pressure, the valve is shut. So during the day, if it's a sunny day and it's warm, the gas will continue to expand, and you'll hear the valves blowing off. It's quite normal. You'll just hear this hissing sound. During the evening time, when it gets cooler, obviously the gas is going to contract, and you will then find the raft a little bit squishy, which is why you have a pump in your emergency pump, and you fit the pump to the inflate-deflate valves on the inside of the raft, and you'll give it a couple of pumps to bring it back up to working pressure. You can't overinflate, because as soon as you overinflate, the pressure release valve will open for you. So it's impossible to overinflate. Once the raft inflates, the strobe light will activate automatically, but there is a way to turn on the strobe light and to turn off the strobe light, and there's an inner light as well attached to the lithium battery pack inside the raft as well. I'll show you how that looks. On this raft, the floor is an inflatable floor. It's the same on this one. Some rafts have an inflatable floor, some have this insulated silver lining inside. But the inflatable floor doesn't inflate via the gas inflation system. You actually have to put the pump on and inflate it. And obviously you would do that in most scenarios, particularly if you're in temperate climates, obviously, where the water temperature is quite low. You want to do that because you'll have that layer of insulation. In the tropics, it's not really an issue. So you would connect the pump up the floor until you feel it reasonably firm. There's no pressure release valve for the floor, but it's very difficult to actually overinflate the floor, because as you're pumping, once you feel it's really hard to get the next pump in, that's when it's inflated. If in the very unlikely event that a pressure release valve fails, if you look inside the raft, you'll see that you have these little bungs inside, and these are designed to seal the pressure relief valve. Now, it's a very, very, very unlikely thing to happen. Okay, out of 150 rafts we do every year, we may have one raft that has a pressure release valve that is a little bit faulty. Okay? But it's important to know that the purpose of these is to seal that valve closed in the unlikely event that the valve is failing. How do you know it's failing? Well, it continues to hiss, and that particular chamber, either the lower chamber or the upper chamber, starts to feel it too soft. Then you realize, okay, that valve has a problem. You take the bung here and you place it on the mouth of the valve, and that will seal it. They're tied in. The reason being that if the raft inflates in an inverted position, you want to make sure that everything stays inside the raft. And in fact, the emergency pack, which is in the raft, which we've already taken out, that's also tied in. So everything inside the raft is tied in just in case the raft opens upside down. You'll notice inside the raft as well, you have a sea anchor or drogue. You have the line for the sea anchor, and that's already permanently attached to the raft. So once you enter the raft, you'll throw out the sea anchor. Even if the weather is calm, you'll still throw out the anchor because you never know what's going to happen. The purpose of that obviously is that if the seas are big, it's going to prevent the raft from sliding down waves at 6, 7, 8 knots or something. So it's going to provide you with that resistance there. Get your foot on the lower side here, get your knee up here, and then using these straps here to haul yourself into the raft. Twin buoyancy chambers, outer lifelines and inner lifelines. You have your inflatable arch, high visibility canopy, which can be zipped up and closed in the event of bad weather. Inside the raft, you'll notice the V section at the back here. This is a water collection, and you'll see that there's a little valve that comes down, and it allows you to collect rainwater. So that V section at the back there is supposed to channel the rainwater into the valve, and then you can collect it from there. How much you can collect, it's hard to say. You have these ballast bags here. These bags have lead weights in them. Once they drop down, they fill with water, and that water gives you the stability that you need. So in other words, if there's 2 of you in an 8-person raft, you still have the stability.
Interesting.
Okay, so it's important to have and to ensure that those ballast bags deploy automatically. Okay, and obviously, if there's just two of you in the raft, and it's an 8-person raft, it would be a useful exercise for both of you to distribute your weight fairly evenly. These are your righting handles. So if the raft opens inverted, upside down, it's a bit like if you were a dinghy sailor, you know, where you climb out on the centerboard and you pull the thing over. So essentially these handles here allow you to reach up and pull the raft back into the upright position.
Oh, so this one here, yeah.
Yeah.
This one here, so you step in that one and then
No,
you grab
these, yeah, exactly.
like that. Yeah. Grab.
Exactly.
Flip it, I get it. Okay.
And just before passage, it doesn't need to be there all the time, but just before passage, you fill it. I think they're 20-litre jugs. You fill it with 18 litres of water and have it strapped somewhere on the deck. And on the handle, you've got a line to a carabiner, and you clip that to the life raft painter and you throw it over. Okay, so you know that your water is going to be at the raft. And you do the same with your grab bag, which contains the e-perb. You have a line on the handles of the grab bag to a carabiner. You clip that, you throw it over. And then you clip yourself on and you go into the water. And as you're pulling yourself down, you're pushing your water and your grab bag down. You reach the raft. And the general rule of thumb is that the strongest, fittest person goes first, because that person is most likely to be able to get into the raft without help, and is also best qualified to help another person into the raft. So you reach the raft, you get into the raft, the next person comes, gets into the raft.
Where's that carabiner hook, the line hooked to this thing? Right there?
The lifeline. The
Lifeline?
Yeah. Okay.
So that's your painter line, that's going back
Okay.
to the yacht.
Right.
You reach the life raft, you get in, you all clip on to the inner lifelines if necessary. If it's flat calm and the reason you've abandoned is because your boat's on fire, you may not need to clip on to the inner lifelines, but it might be no harm to do so anyway. Activate your e-perb, take a seasick pill, and take stock of what you have available.
First thing when I get to here, unclip the water, clip it into that white line, or unclip the grab bag, clip it onto the white line, unclip me, clip it onto the white line, climb into the boat, unclip, clip inside, help you in.
You see why this is useful?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because now you're starting to think about what you're going to do.
Uh-huh.
So you're kind of making this personal, which is what we try for it to be, so that you're not going to see this for the first time. You've already had a kind of a dress rehearsal in your head. You thought, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. Okay. So there's nothing you need to do underneath the raft. Some people say, oh, should we take off the cylinder? No, you do nothing. Because a raft is designed to just allow you to get into the raft and nothing else. You notice that there's a zip on this side here. That's an observation port, so that if in the event of bad weather that you have closed the main entrance, and the main entrance will be open when the raft inflates. But if you have to close it for some reason, bad weather, big waves, whatever, you do have the option of just unzipping this. So the construction, if you look at different rafts, the construction is pretty much the same. There's no difference between. They all have twin buoyancy chambers. They'll all have inflatable arch. They'll all have an emergency lighting system. They all have a sea anchor. They have an emergency pack in there. So you're in the raft. You have your water. You have your e-perb. You take your seasick pill. You take stock of your situation. You know that you've activated your e-perb. You know that people know that you're in distress, and they know where you are. You have water, which means you can survive until help gets to you. You have a raft which is inflating. You're in a really nasty position, uncomfortable, horrific. but your chances of survival are really, really high. Now, forget one of them. Let's say the EPIRB is still at the gas station and the boat's on fire. You've plenty of water, but no one knows where you were. And it's blind luck that anyone will find you. So your chances of survival are pretty low. Or you don't go with the water. You have your EPIRB, you set off your EPIRB. 72 hours later, they find your bodies. You're not alive because you haven't survived. Your organs have shut down because you've gone into dehydration, and that's it. So it's vitally important that you have those 4 simple things: life raft, EPIRB, water, clip on. You have your EPIRB, you have your water, but you fail to clip on. John, you're floating away. Karen's clipped on. What kind of decision does she have to make at that particular point in time?
Where do I sell the boat and where am I going next?
So these are small things, but
Yeah.
if you think about just those 4 simple things, and we still have people who feel, I have a life raft on my boat, I'm okay, but you don't have a life raft on your boat. What you have is a fiberglass box,
Right.
and you've no idea what's in there,
Yeah.
how it works, how it looks, how to get to it, what you need when you get to it, and what you're going to do. So these are simple things. Marine safety doesn't have to be complex. It's actually quite simple, but it requires a little bit of thought on the part of the boat owners concerned to actually do this properly.
I got a question. So we have a high field inflatable raft, 5 aluminum bottom, 15 horse. After I get this all deployed and everything, do I even bother with trying to put that in and just riding that over to this and tying them off?
Why not? Why not? Because the more inflatable items you have, the better. If
Okay.
you have time to do so. Bear in mind, a life raft is designed, it's not designed to save your life. I think you've realized that by now. It's designed to keep you out of the water. What you do beforehand in terms of planning for water, your EPIRB, clipping on, that's what saves your life. But this will allow you to be found or your bodies to be found. It's the decisions you make prior to getting into this that determines whether you live or die. That's the important thing. If you have time and you have a dinghy, absolutely, why wouldn't you launch the dinghy as well and have that tied to the life raft? Because you've got the more inflatable devices. That's all this is. This is an inflatable device. Let's not make no mistake. That's all it is. It's like a glorified paddling pool. And you've got to see it that way. It's only designed to keep you above the water, but it's not designed to actually save your life. Only you can do that. So the decisions you make are the most important things. Let's look at your emergency pack. And life rafts have different types of emergency pack. There's an under 24-hour pack, there's an over 24-hour pack, and then you get into the commercial SOLAS B and SOLAS A packs. Okay? So we know we're going to have 2 parachute rocket flares inside the raft. We have these items here. These are called leak stoppers. And they're designed that if there's a tear or a hole or something in one of the buoyancy chambers, which again is a kind of unusual thing because the material is quite strong. It's designed to be inserted into the tear or the hole. You bang it in and it forms a seal. Now it's not going to be a completely airtight seal, but it's most likely going to slow air loss down to the point where you can keep up with it with the pump. Okay. Torch. This is the pump or bellows. The end fitting here is matched to the inflate-deflate valve inside the raft. So you simply have to pop it in and start pumping. And you will use that obviously when the raft feels a little bit soft in the evening time after the gas has expanded during the day. And you're just putting air in, not carbon dioxide obviously. So you're just popping in. And again, you can't overinflate the raft. Seasick pills. these would have expired January 24. This is a emergency. It's specifically designed for burns and skulls. Some rafts will have a very basic first aid kit. It's always a good idea to have your own first aid kit in your grab bag, and the first aid kit should reflect your level of competency. Why have a suture kit if you don't know how to suture? Because I guarantee you it's not the place to learn when you're inside the life raft. Now we get into the water, and as we said, you're going to have 4 litres of water in total. Expiry August 2025. So my recommendation would be not to change the water. Is it going to go bad in August 2025? No, it's not going to go bad. I don't think we should change that water. I think we should keep that water the way it is. Before we take out the rest of the water, here's our 3 hand red flares. And these expire in March of 2024. Okay, so there's a disparity between the dates there. So we need to make a decision on these.
So we have more in our ditch bag too.
And everybody does. You always have to have flares in the raft, but we need to make a decision. Do we change these or do we keep them? I'll give you my opinion if you want it.
Sure.
And they have about a year left of validity. If you want to change them, you could change them. Or what you could say is, okay, we're going to change them, and we're going to take these and we're going to put them in our grab bag to update maybe some expired flares that we have.
Okay.
We need to kind of be making that decision so that we know how we're to repack.
Didn't we put new ones in there?
I don't remember.
We'll check, and if
Yeah.
we did, we'll bring them and give you our new ones to put in here, and we'll take those.
That could be the thing to do. So we can be kind of practical about this, and avoiding waste and unnecessary costs, etc. Here's the rest of our water. 8 packs. That represents.
What do they got, like a sponge in there or something?
No, it's basically they're packed in individual sachets, little sachets, 50ml sachets. So when you open the pack, you have these little individual plastic sachets of water. There is 2x5 by 50ml. So basically, you have 10 sachets of 50 milliliter little sachets. Okay. We have a repair kit. Not that you would ever want to use that. But the standard says that there has to be some sort of repair kit in a life raft. Can you repair? I struggle to see how anybody could do it, to be quite honest with you. Particularly when the instructions are that you take the area there, you sand it, and you sand the patch, and then you apply a thin layer of adhesive, and you wait 5 minutes for it to dry, and then you apply another thin layer of adhesive to the tube and to the patch, and you wait another 5 minutes for that to dry, and then you bring everything together with as much pressure as you can and don't inflate for 24 hours. How ridiculous is that? So, but it's one of these things. If the regulation states that you must have that in the raft, then you must have that in the raft. And a lot of these things which are mandated by regulation, some of them don't make any sense. For example, we have paddles in the life raft. Can you paddle a life raft? No. Not when those ballast bags deploy, you're not going to go anywhere except for in a circle. But the regulation states that you must have paddles in the life raft. So apart from this, there's nothing else here that's actually going to save your life or be of use to you in any way. So you can clearly see that what we talked about earlier, which is water and EPIRB and clipping on, that's what's going to save your life. When you get into the raft and you open your emergency pack, you're going to get no value out of these. Okay, so you see a ship in the distance, you fire a flare, and you're relying on the officer of the watch to actually be looking in your direction at that particular time.
Mm-hmm.
But on big commercial ships, the officer of the watch is on the bridge, and they have two screens in front of them. One is the radar screen, and the other is Netflix. And they're going to be looking at one or the other. So unless they're actually looking directly in your direction at the time you fire this, the chances are that they're going to miss it. I'm not rubbishing these. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that you have to think about how to save yourself.
Our VHF that's in our grab bag, our handheld.
You probably have about a mile range at water level, and the ship is 4 miles away. They're not going to hear you. Again, sorry for being cynical, but it's the decisions that you make prior to getting to the raft which determines the outcome. So if you think, oh, I'll just fire off a flare, they're going to come get me. No, that's kind of a bad call to make. Or we have a VHF, I'll call them. You have a mile, maybe a mile and a half at that, because your handheld VHF, you're transmitting at what, 1 watt power?
It's a 5 watt.
If you got a 5, you might get 2 miles, but it's not something that you would rely on. Would you rely on an EPIRB? Absolutely. One of the most faultless pieces of equipment ever. EPIRBs are inherently reliable. Once that satellite receives that signal, people know that you're in trouble and they know where you are. A $25 blue jerry jug with water in it is the most cost-effective piece of marine safety equipment you will ever invest in. Have 2 of them. Now you've got 18 litres of water in each. Now you've got 36 litres of water plus 4. You've got 40 litres of water. You could have a shower. You could have a bath, for God's sake. But you know you're going to survive until help gets to you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else in here? Yeah, I mean, a bailer, it's handy, big waves, and you slosh out the life raft or whatever. But don't ever think of your emergency pack as the item on the life raft that's actually going to save you. It's not going to save you. It's just bits that you get. Okay? So those are the main components. Your life raft, it's important to understand how it looks, how it operates, and how to get from the yacht to the raft. It's important to know once you get into the raft what's going to be in there. Well, you're going to have that pack in there. You're going to have your sea anchor and the line. You're going to have that useless set of paddles in there as well that you can maybe bop fish over the head with or whatever.
So don't forget your 4 things: the life raft, the EPIRB, your extra water, and to clip onto the boat before you jump in the water. Next time, I'd like to go through what's in our ditch bag for you. Thank you very much for watching this. If you have any questions, please comment below. I will always reply. And don't forget to subscribe because that really helps us with YouTube.